I'm going to the officers online, have I? Okay. Right, okay, I'm ready, Matthew, thank you. Prynawn da pawb, hi everybody, good afternoon and welcome to our Learning and LGES committee on Monday, the 11th of December. As always, just to note that this meeting is recorded and may be broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes. I'm going to move straight on to the agenda. Agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence. Councillor Claire Jones has noted her apologies. Paul Phillips. Paul has noted his apologies. And that's it, I think, is it? Yeah, and
Gareth.
oh yes, of course, and Vice Chair Gareth as well. Okay. Colleagues in the chamber, colleagues online, I'm expecting a personal call just with regards to an incident at home. It's nothing to worry about, but I may have to call for a 5-minute recess when that happens, just for me to speak to an engineer externally. My house may be falling apart or not, I don't know. And then I'll come back in. So if that's okay with you, we may get through the meeting without the engineer being on site. But if not, I just need to call for a 5-minute recess, if that's okay. It should be no longer than a couple of minutes, just to make a decision. Okay, agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any? No. My lovely Joseph is in the room. My Jacob is in the room. No, it's a little joke between myself and Jacob. Councillor Jamie Scriven.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't see it named directly, but obviously there's a lot of intel and information on schools directly in the report. So just in case I've missed it, I am the local authority governor for Gethy Primary, but I have full dispensation to be here.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Not specifically on Gethley Vylog today, and within the West, we're talking generally about all of our Welsh medium education schools as well. So I think you're okay for this particular meeting, but Jamie, thank you for bringing it to my attention. And then with regards to RAS, that is a whole school and local authority policy, but again, thank you for bringing that to my attention. So colleagues, just to reiterate, we are okay for today's meeting if we are governors. Thank you for noting that. Okie doke. So I'll move straight on to agenda item number 3. It is the Welsh Education Strategic Plan. We commonly call it the WESP strategy. And obviously we are going to receive a report on the progress made against targets within that strategy. And then we'll open it up to some questions and comments if that's okay. Obviously we've got our cabinet member, Michelle Jones, with us, and we've got Sue and Andrea with us today. So welcome to everybody. I'm going to hand over to Michelle to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you. So Section 84 of the School Standards and Organisation Wales Act 20131, or the 2013 Act, requires a local authority to prepare a Welsh and Education strategic plan and outlines that a plan must contain a local authority's proposals on how it will carry out its education functions, 2, 1, improve the planning of the provision of education through the medium of Welsh medium education in its area, and 2, improve the standards of Welsh medium education and of the teaching of Welsh in its area. And B, the local authority's targets for improving the planning of the provision of Welsh medium education in its area and for improving the standards of education and of the teaching of Welsh in its area. C, report on the progress made to meet the targets contained in the previous plan or previous revised plan. The report submitted to Welsh Government in July of this year is attached at Appendix 1 to this report, with additional actions carried out this term included as well. Section 84 also sets out with whom a local authority is required to consult in preparing or revising its plan, and provides the Welsh ministers with the power to prescribe other persons with which the local authority must consult. It is very much a partnership plan, and the community actions cannot be undertaken by the local authority alone and should also within targets and actions of our partners. This is the first 10-year plan, as the previous 2 WESPs have been for 5 years. Our WESP runs from September 2022 until 2023. The aims of the WESP are set out by Welsh Government.
That was my mistake.
Sorry, 20. I was thinking then the 10 years was 2022 to 2033. The aims of the WESP are set out by Welsh Government and are that, bear with me, more nursery children, 3-year-olds, receive their education through the medium of Welsh. More reception class children, 5-year-olds, receive their education through the medium of Welsh. More children continue to improve their Welsh language skills when transferring from one stage of their statutory education to another. More learners study for assessed qualifications in Welsh as a subject and subjects through the medium of Welsh. More opportunities for learners to use Welsh in different contexts in schools. An increase in the provision of Welsh medium education for pupils with additional learning needs in accordance with the duties imposed by the Additional Learning Needs and Education Tribunal Wales Act 2018, and to increase the number of teaching staff able to teach Welsh as a subject and teach through the medium of Welsh. An expectation has been set by Welsh Government for the local authority to increase the number of learners in Year 1 who are receiving their education through the Welsh language. In 2019-20, there were 100 pupils, which is 14% of the year group population, being taught in Welsh medium schools. The target by 2030-31 is between 155 and 185, which is 22 to 26%. Our WESP drives the overall vision, Merthyr Tydfil, Shremirement, a county borough where the Welsh language is heard, spoken and celebrated through all walks of life. So the recommendation at 2.1 is that the content of the report be discussed and noted and members consider if there are any other areas that they would like to scrutinise. Thank you.
Diolch, Michelle. Excellent. Thank you ever so much. I'm going to open it out now to my colleagues for any questions on this report. Councillor Clive Tyvie.
Yes, I noticed on page 21, outcome 4, it seems that in the year 22 to 23, there were fewer pupils entered for the Welsh as a second language, and in the year 21, sorry, I'm getting confused. In the year 2023 as well, the number of pupils leaving school with a Welsh qualification fell quite significantly, I think. What was the reason for the fall? Because I would have thought the COVID was over then. It's on page 21 or page 11, whichever one.
Certainly with last year, we had, before Andrew comes in, we had a number of pupils who actually transferred from Rhyd y Waun into our secondary schools. Now that means that they can't take the Welsh, they can't be entered for the Welsh language, for the second language, because they've already started their secondary education through the medium of Welsh. So that's one of the reasons. And it could be that, well, that's probably the, Andrea, if there's anything else.
I think if we consider as well that, because as you mentioned there about sort of COVID being over,
yeah,
the GCSE course is actually a 2-year program.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So if you kind of work that back to 2020, 2021, then those students would have been sort of undertaking that. So there will be impact around that within the qualifications for 2023. 2023 saw a return to the examinations, whereas 2022, there was still a mixed economy because the examinations were changed. In some cases, some of the schools do a kind of what's called an agored qualification rather than a GCSE qualification, which supports less able learners as such as well. So that wouldn't show within the GCSE figure as well.
Okay, then, thanks.
We'll do it like that. Okay, guys. So over to Lauren.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at paragraph 7.4, and it's talking about focused partnership working on improving transition rates. what we could explain what when we say partnership work, and who are we sort of talking about on that one?
Depends which phase, Lawrence, but as you say, so there's in the early years, there'll be work with colleagues from Mudiad Maithrin. In terms of the schools, there's partnership work there with people like the Urdd, with Mentor Iaith, across school collaboration as well. And then taking it into secondary, there's collaboration between the schools and the college for the pathway into A-level. So it depends on which area, really.
If you're looking at the preschool as well, Lawrence, whilst Andrea has mentioned Mudiad Maithrin, there's also need to actually engage more with the schools. So the schools are actually engaging with Mudiad Maithrin, as well as Mudiad Maithrin engaging with the schools. So it's creating those links between schools and between the Cylch Maithrin. So what we've done is identified specific Cylch Maithrin for the two Welsh medium schools that are set up, and also for the seedling school on the Gurnos. And the expectation is that the schools undertake transition rates with those. We've got a particular issue with one Cylch Maithrin, which, whilst it sits within the catchment area of Ysgol Santes Tydfil, is actually not close to Santes Tydfil. So there's some specific work being done with that provision to engage the families and to engage them in further in Welsh medium. So that's our main transition one, is from preschool into mainstream schools.
Well, I guess then from the intimation by the statement that transition rates are obviously not as good as they should be.
Not for preschool into schools. For we actually have it's quite good from our Welsh medium schools into secondary, but not from preschool into school.
Okay. On the next paragraph, 7.5, again, it mentioned partnership opportunities for specialist class provisions. So who would be looking for these opportunities, and who are we looking to get them from? Is it the same as we just spoke about?
No, it's looking wider than that, and we're looking at other sort of local authorities that have got specialist class provision. So we are we're a small authority, so to actually have some specific, although there will be a Welsh medium LRB, as you know from the workshops that we've had, it's looking at how we can support behavioural difficulties, is where we can get that wider aspect. So if we've got children that have gone through the Welsh medium education system and have behavioural difficulties, you want to be able to offer them the support through the language of their education. So it's looking widely at what other partners can support those children, be it youth workers, be it different organisations that can actually work with those children through the language of their education.
Yeah. So next one then, I'm jumping down to, where are we? Outcome, the information regarding outcome in the reports. And it mentions about progress. Let me just get it right in front. Outcome one, more nursery children, 3-year-olds receive their education through the medium of Welsh. And what I was looking at was, it says there, progress as outcome is appropriate, however, key areas are cause for concern. I'm just wondering, is it appropriate, and if we have got some key areas which are causing these concerns?
I think if you look at the table above, you can actually see where there would be that significant cause for concern.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got one particular setting that stands out from the others. So that's our cause.
Yeah.
Our numbers are small, so our percentages can be skewed because we've got small numbers. In sort of one of them, it's only 2 children that are not going, but yet that's an 87.5% transition. It's that bottom one that we have a concern with, that we've got some specific work going on with the school.
Yeah, because the other thing then, going down, jumping, where am I? Bear with me again, I suppose. So first of all, I want to thank you and the officer, Andrea, for this detail. Very, very comprehensive, very clear. It's just really, really good to be able to sort of look at it. So thank you for that. Because what I got then, looking at the if you like, outcomes going forward then between 1 and 6. And I'm looking at the risks that you mentioned, outcome level risks. And throughout them all, I see there is a mention that the impact, which is understandable, about workforce development issues is mentioned, and also various financial risks issues are there. So obviously these are ongoing, and how do we expect, well, these are significant, so therefore this surely is going to undermine your ambitions on these outcomes, isn't it?
We're continually trying to work with the different levels of the workforce around some of these. They are challenging, as you say, because there's lots of competing priorities. In terms of the school's workforce is an enhanced professional learning offer that comes through CSC, but we've also linked, and again, this goes back to partnership, Lawrence, with Learn Welsh Glamorgan, which offers opportunities for the school's workforce, actually, as well as our own workforce here in the local authority as well. So we've opened different opportunities, one in Santa's Tidville, one in Penydre, and there was one in Rhyd as well for people to sort of take up Welsh language courses there as well. So what we're trying to do is kind of, I guess, beat the drum and keep sort of hammering away at the importance of it. It is linked in with the professional standards for teachers, so there needs to be a sort of a certain level that the schools need to consider around that as well. So it is a matter of just working through the challenges that are faced and trying to find different opportunities for them.
Yeah, I see that. Right. Lastly, then I'll, if you don't mind, if I go down to outcome 7, there's key annual data mentioned there about teaching staff able to teach Welsh.
Yeah.
And looking at the table, could you sort of explain to me what that table's telling me? Because I was looking at it, and looking at it sort of diagonally, the numbers are going down. So I'm just wondering what is, you know, it's I seem to have a bad idea, feeling about it.
It's more about the proficiency. So the higher the number there, the W7 is the higher the level of proficiency as such. So more people have a basic level of understanding of Welsh than they do of a proficient level of understanding. Currently, the data is actually being collected because it's annual. It's actually in process at the moment and due at the end of December, I think, as well. So we'll have an update on this, but that's why the numbers are going down, Lawrence, because there's less proficiency. Or less people with a larger range of proficiency. So the W1 is the kind of basic level.
Exactly. Yeah.
As well. So the W6, W7, you'd expect perhaps to see more in obviously the Welsh medium schools, and then some around our English medium schools as well. So what the schools do is to look at this and then be able to tailor some of their lessons, some of the support needed for staff around the language continuum. The language continuum is slightly changed as well for this. So that helps then schools to determine what they need to put in place and how they need to support their members of staff. So for example, in one of our schools recently, they had some bespoke provision put in for their staff, but they based it on the need. So they had a kind of an early adopters sort of model where those with basic levels were given a certain thing, and then a kind of midway level where those were given something else, rather than everybody has the same, because obviously in language learning that's not necessarily going to work as well, and utilizing those with more proficient skills to help the kind of basic learners as well.
I see. Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lawrence. You're welcome. I'm going to go to Lisbeth and then Jamie and then come to Anna. Lisbeth.
Hiya. I just want to say before I start that the work that's been done on the West in the last couple of years has been better than any work that was done for generations beforehand, right? Some really good work has been done in terms of Welsh education. more recently. The first thing I wanted to say actually touches upon something that Lawrence said in terms of partners. What I can't see in this WESP is the work that's being done by partners being reflected really. And I do wonder, because I know that there is a new way that us as partners, I am one of those partners, that we feed into the whole meeting structure, and we have had meetings about that. But what I want to ask is, how are we making the most out of the expertise that's around the table? I don't think, do you think we're doing that?
If we actually look at outcome 5, which is really the one where we look at where partners have a partner, you've got specific partners, haven't you, in outcome 1 and 2, which is mid-year, where we're looking at early years and developing that. We know that our early years team are working far closer with mid-year than they have previously. We've had success in the Kilchmeithrin on the Gurnos, which has recently won an award, which is really positive news for that seedling school. If you're then actually looking at outcome 5, which is using Welsh in different contexts in the school, whilst a lot of our key annual data is against the Siarter Iaith, if you actually read sort of the outcome summary, it is looking at sort of some of that aspects with the Eisteddfodau, which Mentor Iaith have supported as well, and the college have supported. The Shemairament room and launched at the college, and the work that they're actually doing. So that's where it actually feeds in. You mentioned the highlight reports, and unfortunately for various reasons, we had to postpone the WEF meeting.
Yeah.
Last week because of the incident that was taking place in Merthyr at that time. Those highlight reports are what we used to actually complete this report, and we couldn't have, Andrea, who pulled the reports together at the last minute, wouldn't have been able to have done that without the highlight reports. So it is emphasising that actually those highlight reports that come to the WEF on a termly basis are key in providing this evidence moving forward and having that, having that engagement. So it would come into that context. It does also come in if you actually look at Andrea mentioned Learn Welsh Glamorgan. We don't just rely on CSC to support our staff. We do engage with Learn Welsh Glamorgan, and in Mentor Iaith, you have courses like that our teachers can actually engage as well. So perhaps it's not as explicit as it could be, but those highlight reports certainly feed into this and show the work of the partners moving forward.
Okay, it's something that I have got a little bit of a thing about really, is the fact that in outcome 5, when we're supposed to be talking about partnership working, but we're talking about Welsh that's used in schools, where really that refers to Welsh that's used outside of the classroom, which is in community as well. And I don't feel that is reflected in the WESPs, not just ours, but across Wales.
And I think, Liz, to come back on that, I think that's our fault. We tend to think of this as an education plan. As you know, we drew this up with our Welsh language strategy alongside it, which is why the community group straddles both the Welsh language strategy and the WESP. Because if we don't get, and it's got the same vision, it's that Merthyr Tydfil, and I should know it off the top of my, is that sort of that normalisation and the use of Welsh and hearing it wherever you are. One of the things that isn't in here, because it's happened recently since we actually published this, and is a piece of work that was gone on in the Southern Cluster, where children have actually gone and used their Welsh with our community focused schools officers, with local businesses, and actually gone and shared that. And now some of the local businesses in the Southern Cluster are displaying our Shemairament logo. So it is that use of Welsh out in the community. So that would feed into next year's report, actually going into that. So yes, there's a lot that we can add to that we need to add to it to make it wider than just school, although it is other context than in school.
Yeah. A couple of things just to flag up. The ALM provision was first discussed I went back right through all my WESP stuff, and I found it in June 2019. And I'm just asking the question, why hasn't that LRB been developed yet? I've been talking about it for years.
It didn't go, I'm not sure, right, I wasn't part of the last WESP, as you know. I didn't, it didn't come on as an actual action and target until this WESP, which is 2022. It might have been discussed, but it wasn't an actual target and action. So it is in this WESP. We are looking at how we can actually, whilst we won't have a physical space for the LRB from September because of finance, as Lauren said, and how we're actually driving that, we will have an LRB, as in children who meet the criteria for an LRB in the 3 schools, so the Seedling School and Santa's Tidwell and Shreder Creek, being supported during the next academic year by a member of staff who will then go into the LRB when it's situated in Shreder Creek. So that doesn't really answer your question, Liz, but it does show where we are going next.
It is a priority.
It is
yeah.
definitely a priority.
Another thing I'd like to just say is that you mentioned in the report that we have a 3rd Welsh medium school now. I don't think, and a lot of others feel it as well, that we can't really say we've got a 3rd school yet, because we don't know where it is, where it's going to be, and
Now,
when it's going to be there.
in many respects, the fact that the meeting last week was postponed will help, because the report that was coming to that meeting, as you know, was the infrastructure report. Because for other members, to our Welsh in Education Forum, we take a key aspect of the WESP to each forum and have a longer discussion on it. Like we've Andrea took the curriculum, and Gavin took the ALN, and this terms was the infrastructure. We're looking at that feasibility study of where that will be ready for the new date.
Okay. I have another one about, it was touching on something that somebody else said as well, in terms of the transfer rate from Twin Carmel to schools. Do we know why that is? Do we know why people aren't sending their children onto the Welsh school after there? And also, what are we going to do about it?
That's a discussion, again, that's a discussion that we would have had last week.
Okay.
Because we just had, that's last year's data, but this year's data is giving a similar picture. So it's the discussion that I'd picked up when I looked at the highlight reports. So it would have been a discussion. That's not saying, that's not putting it off. We need to do something about it. One of the things we'll say that it's getting the children there. It is, because of where it's situated, parents tend to use it almost as a convenience, rather than as making a concerted effort to have their children educated through the medium of Welsh. So which is why we've asked Santa's Tidwell to make a concerted effort to link with Tyne Carmel to actually do that piece of work with that work. And as you know, within the WESP, it says that by the end of this this WESP, there will be, each school will be linked specifically with, I think it's 3 Kilchmaithrin, and actually as part of that, there's their school work to actually engage with parents and to ensure, I think, we're looking at how we can extend the TRV groups.
I think we really need to make the most out of this new champion that's been what is she called? I've written it down here because I don't know it in English. Welsh Medium Education Promotional Champion that's been employed between 10 local authorities to promote Welsh education. We could actually be submitting an idea for a project to them to get them to help us with the seedling school or promotion in general across the borough. So we need to be making the most of that opportunity. The one other thing that I really want to draw attention to is the lack of really any information about Reader Wine in this report. While I understand that we can't really report on another local authority's staff targets in this, it's important that it's transparent and that people know the range that's available to them in Reader Wine and what the position is in Reader Wine, because the fact that people don't know where their child is going to, what their child is going to be benefiting from at a later stage makes a difference in terms of making the choice to choose the Welsh education in the first place. It's one of the barriers to choosing Welsh education, in the same way as not knowing where the Welsh school for in the Gurnes is actually going to be,
So what would you, sorry Liz, what would you like to see?
What I'd like
because
to see
we
is,
can't report on data because they don't actually disaggregate the data from
Yeah.
Merthyr children from RCT. Once they go
Yeah.
to RCT, once they go to Rhydd Wine, they are Rhydd Wine pupils as opposed to Merthyr pupils and RCT pupils.
What I've discussed this with Elin Maher, who knows
Yeah.
more about you know, how different regions work together in this way. And we were talking about, you know, being aware of how many children are going to Rhondda and Tav. If they are all going to Rhondda and Tav, because at some point in that West it mentions secondary Welsh schools in other local authorities. So we need to know which schools. Is it only Rhydd Wine or are there other schools?
Right, it's 96% of our children transfer to Rhydd Wine. I think that only leaves one or two per year. We have previously had children that have gone to Cymrumney, but they don't. Our
Sorry, Rhydd Wine.
sec is Rhydd Wine, and we have, compared to other local authorities, we have one of the highest transfer rates from
Good.
from English medium, from Welsh medium primary schools to Welsh medium secondary schools.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's just the number of people or the percentage of how much is the percentage of Merthyr young people that are going to Rhydd Wine, and also the range of subjects that are available to them in Rhydd Wine, because one of the big problems for us, right, when you talk, you say quite often about us being a tertiary, you know, Merthyr being a tertiary education system. The Rhydd Wine pupils do not have that choice. They can go to Merthyr College, but they don't have the range. They don't have subjects taught through the medium of Welsh. And that is going to be difficult for them because they've done their whole education in Welsh. Yeah. So they are at a disadvantage, you know, because a lot of them would like to go to Merthyr College and are at a disadvantage.
I think we are seeing increasing numbers of courses being offered in Merthyr College, and I think
none of them are offered in the medium of Welsh, right? There's something I'd like to make clear. There is not one course in Merthyr College through the medium of Welsh. The only thing that they have is support workers who help people do their course through Welsh, but they're doing English courses.
There are two learners on page 22, Liz.
Right.
There are two learners, and I know it's only two, currently taking an assessed qualification. I'm not sure whether it's health and social care or public services, solely through the medium of Welsh.
Yeah,
and
but they're being taught in English. Honestly, they are.
Right, okay. The college have got their own targets, and perhaps it's not for here, but it is for the WEF to actually call the college in, because they obviously feed into our WEF, and to actually ask the college for some specific information moving forward. So if you don't mind, we'd make that an action, but not for scrutiny,
Okay.
Chair, for the WEF.
And the very last question, I promise, feasibility study for secondary education. When are we going to know the results of that and be able to discuss it?
Right, there's a workshop for councillors, and we'll invite our scrutiny members, because it's come to this scrutiny in the beginning of next year. I don't know when it is, Jeff. I don't know when it is, because Anthony is liaising with Alex for that, but we will make sure that our scrutiny members are invited to that, with the intention that before the end of this municipal year, the report goes to council.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say thank you very, very much for all the work that you do on this, Sue. You've done a really good job the last few years. There are even questions, but we would be in a much worse state if it wasn't for all the work you do.
Okay, can I just ask a point of clarification? When you say about what's on offer in Rhydd Wine, Liz, can I just check? It's at Key Stage 4? You mean that?
No, on Key Stage 5, I think.
And 5, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Because there is transition work going on around the new curriculum with Santa Stydville and Rhydd Grig around Key Stage 3.
All right.
As well, yeah, and there's lots of sort of the usual kind of transition opportunities that go on at this time of year, and actually they've gone more throughout the year these days rather than before they go in. So that kind of 5, 6, 7 model.
Yeah, but also the ALM provision that's there.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
I know they've had excellent ALM provision in the past. I don't know what they have now. And you know, that can make a difference when people are making decisions.
Okay, thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Okay, I'm going to go to Jamie, then Anna, and then Jacob, then Natalie. Okay, Jamie.
No, thank you, Chair. Should be short. I think a lot of my questions have been asked already, so that's good. Just so going back to what Liz was just talking about, obviously mentioning the data from Redewine. Will that data be mentioned and taken into account when the reports go back around the feasibility study to councillors? So I think what Liz is getting at is a really good point, and it's that clarity of knowing what the offer is and what's currently going on in terms of the pupils that are transitioning over, and makes a big impact really on our Welsh medium offer if councillors are fully aware of that picture as well.
As in what? Because obviously as part of the report, we would have the numbers, we know the numbers that are actually going to Redewine. What other information would you be looking for, Councillor Scriven?
I was just thinking in terms of like the different options that are available, like Liz mentioned, so what's being offered at Redewine, like you just mentioned the numbers that are going over. So I'm assuming that will be in the report, will it?
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. That's all I needed to know on that. That's fine. I do apologise. I think Clive might have touched on this one. I just want to check, but we were on different pages with the questions. So under 5.13, there was the point mentioned about the entered to Welsh language as a second language GCSE and that drop. Am I right in saying, like you said to Clive, that's because of the transition back from Redewine and people that couldn't go onto that course?
Some of it may be linked to that. Some of it may be linked to things like attendance linked to COVID, and then what we're experiencing there. Also, other options other than GCSE
Yeah.
for sort of lower attaining learners, so wouldn't necessarily be within that data either. We are looking at school entry rates currently as well. So my meetings with the secondary school around results is not till January, because obviously they're all verified at that point as well. So we are looking at what specifics around which schools are entering and at which level as well. So that will link into that. We'll have kind of more detail around what that entry amount was and the reasons it didn't happen when I have those discussions as well.
Yeah, that'd be great to bring back to a future scrutiny so we can really see the detail in that, in how we've got to that point. That'd be great. Thanks. And the other question I had was in regards to 4.2 and 4.8, and it's just around the nursery and reception figures. Are you able to expand on this to give some context those figures? Because it seems we're below target for the nursery and just above for reception. I'm just wondering why that is.
Where we were.
4.2 is where we were, isn't it?
Yeah, 4.2 and 4.8.
It's just numbers in the cohort. So if you're actually looking at so this is where we were. We had 80. It's the numbers of it's the number of children actually within the cohort. So you'll have different numbers each year, which is why it'll be slightly different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
So,
I was just
so
obviously
21,
looking at it.
yeah, 21, 22. So there are 88 children in our nursery classes, but they're in the same year group. There are only 85 in our reception classes. So
Right.
it's the same year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I got it. Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think everyone else covered any other questions I asked. That's great. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you, Jamie. Anna.
Thank you. So this does touch a little bit on what Liz raised about opportunities to use the Welsh language, not just within schools, but within the community. And you referenced, obviously, there's a separate, but I suppose parallel Welsh language plan. So can I clarify, Councillor George, does that sit within your portfolio?
No, Michelle Simmons.
Okay, so it's under regeneration.
No, it's under Michelle as Welsh language champion.
Okay. So I don't know whether this is relevant to ask, and maybe for another time, but my question is, to what extent do you think the local authority can influence those opportunities to speak Welsh within the community?
I would say, as Director of Education, that education is the universal tool that we can actually, and it's not just education in schools. It's if you read the corporate plan, that it's aspirational learning is learning for everybody. So it's adults as well as children in schools. So I do think the local authority, through his work with ACL, through his work with Mentor Iaith, through his work with his other partners, and actually the events like the Diwrnod Shwmae, like the Christmas Fair, have a big presence in actually ensuring that the Welsh language is heard out and about in the local authority, and not just in, it doesn't just become the language of the classroom, it's actually used. So it sits very firmly for me under the first aspect of the corporate plan.
Okay, thank you. And I may have another one, please bear with me, or may have been asked. No, it's been asked.
That's all right. We've got some excellent questions today, haven't we? So no problem at all, Anna. Thank you. Jacob.
Hello. I just had a quick question. Obviously, in the Scrutiny plan, it's quite clear that we don't want Welsh to just stay in schools and obviously want to be in the community. So on page 10 at 7.2, obviously it states that we want to provide further opportunities for children and young people to use the language in different contexts. So I was just wondering, will the local authorities strive to give these young people, Welsh learning and Welsh speaking young people, the opportunity to voice their opinions, thoughts and ideas of how they can try and promote Welsh, both as a social way, both within schools and education? Because I think as important as we give plenty of resources for these people to learn Welsh, it's just as important that obviously the young people feel like they are given opportunities.
I'll take that one if that's okay. The opportunities in a sense, Jacob, would come through the kind of the school routes, but some of the work that we're doing at the moment is around the Crew Cymraeg. So linking back to what Anna was just saying around the community element, part of the Siarter Iaith Silver and Gold, they have to interconnect with the community. So that gives kind of a two-way opportunity there. As well. So that's one way. So the Crew Cymraeg, we're planning an event in March to allow some feedback to come through there. The work that the community focused schools are doing, that Sue alluded to earlier within Troedyrw, is actually with the Crew Cymraeg as well, looking at what sort of impact they can have. And that voice is also happening in sort of every school because they all have those groups as well. We've also got opportunities via things like the Earth. At the moment, those competitions are ongoing, and that will sort of see some of the Eisteddfods in the new year as well. And then obviously opportunity in the Eisteddfod in the summer in RCT.
We've also got, and we've had a link for a number of years between the Urdd and the youth service. So whilst part of that is to ensure that our children, with the children of Merthyr who attend Rhydd Wine, have got a youth provision and can use their language in Merthyr Tydfil, it's also an opportunity for other learners who don't attend Rhydd Wine to develop their Welsh through that link with the Urdd, and that's something that we're trying to sort of develop. It's been going on for a number of years now, but it's how we actually maximise that. And as part of our setting up of the West, we did engage with the empty Boyf. I can't remember if it was the cabinet or whether it was the full, I think it was the cabinet. It was cabinet to actually see. And that was one of the things that they wanted, was a bilingual forum to actually, exactly what you said. What do we have now? Because we're learning Welsh in school. We want to carry on. How can we actually address that? So a lot of the things through the Eisteddfod, but how we can actually engage that with the youth service as well. Okay, thank you.
Jacob, did you have any more questions?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Natalie.
5.16 with the events and opportunities. You partially answered about the Charter Iaith with the gold and silver, the engagement they need to have with the communities. I just wanted to ask though, is it just the Welsh medium schools that are showcasing Cymraeg and Cynefin, or is there good uptake from the English medium schools as well?
The first one, we had the first one, Liz will laugh now. We didn't have any Welsh medium schools, and it was all our English medium schools that actually shared. It has improved since then, but we do have, we do only have 2 Welsh medium schools. So
Yeah.
if you're actually looking at that, it's ensuring that for the Diwrnod Shemain, for the Fire Nadolig, we actually have the range of schools. So we actually, Hilgerig was at, I can't remember which one. They've been at one of them this year, but to make sure that we get representation, it's difficult because it's a Saturday, and certainly when you've got the Christmas fair, there are lots of other things going on as well. So it's offered to all schools to ensure that we've got that. This is Welsh is everybody's business, not just.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to check you're not preaching to the converted, really, if it is mostly the Welsh medium schools. Thank you. And then the other thing was about the specific social media presence. Is that the Shemaironment accounts for Facebook and that?
Yeah.
So where's you've got on there that it's reaching 17.7 thousand people in 90 days. Is that the number of views for particular posts? Or
So we actually, thank you.
yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I was looking at it. I follow the Shemairont on Facebook. But I think that shows my age because not so many of the youngsters now use Facebook.
I'm with you, Natalie.
Yeah. So I was looking at followers last night on the Shemaironment accounts, and I take it that's the local authority run accounts for this. Yeah. So there's 478 followers on Facebook, only 32 on X, or formerly Twitter. But there wasn't anything on TikTok. And less than 100 posts on Instagram. So can we maybe sort of look at a different
authority? We wouldn't promote the use of TikTok. That is something that we've made a decision at, and used through the safeguarding, and we've taken advice from the safeguarding board. So TikTok, you won't see anything.
I'm just wondering whether maybe you're missing part of your younger audience, the ones that you're looking to engage, and maybe that's a consideration for going forward. But thank you.
It is actually in a plan.
Perfect.
I think it's in the community subgroups plan to extend. X is new, so hence the lower number of followers as well. But the analytics show the level of reach as well, so you can boost posts as well. So that might not show on that immediate sort of followers element, but it'll show on an analytic elsewhere. I'm learning all these things as well, by the way. And then we also use the Addysg one as well, which is the education Twitter.
Yeah.
So I'll again, so for the authority, so I run that one. So whatever is posted on Shemaironment will then be posted on to the Addysg one as well. So again, it gives a different level of reach around those things. So we're getting there on social media, slowly but surely.
All right, thank you. Clive, back to you.
Yeah, my question's not related to the Welsh language, but I noticed on page 29, the table you got there, you seem to only have one teacher over the age of 60. Do teachers generally go by the time they're 60, do they?
They're exhausted by then, They're exhausted.
Oh, is that it? Oh, well, I retired the other day, I'm 70. But no, the teachers generally finish at 60, yeah. Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Clive. Liz, back to you.
You were talking then about the Welsh language strategy and there are 2 strategies in there. There's the Welsh Education Strategic Plan, and then there's the Welsh Language Strategy, which includes community and everything more, isn't it? Although community should be going into the West, but the West feeds into the bigger strategy, doesn't it? Right? So I was surprised then to see that it fitted under a different area, and maybe that's why that strategy isn't getting the attention in terms of the way that we're working together as partners at the moment. It's the education strategy that's getting the attention. Just saying that needs to be flagged up, doesn't it?
I think if you think about the the Welsh Government's 2050 agenda. This is where we're at, 1 million speakers by 2050. There are Andrea and myself and one of the officers from HR have been part of leading the bilingual country program that's delivered by Welsh Government and Academy Wales, and sort of how to actually drive this forward and how to drive that agenda forward. So there's a lot of work. There's been a lot of work in actually looking at that corporate Welsh language agenda and actually taking it across the country. It still feels very education biased to me. It shouldn't be. It needs to sit wider. It needs to sit corporately.
I really don't feel that the work that's being done in community in terms of Welsh language development is not being reflected in any of these of this work. Yeah, and it could look a lot better than it does at the moment. Really, we need to find a way of.
We do report.
doing
It's
that.
interesting because whilst this has come to scrutiny and is being scrutinised, as annually, we have to provide a summary against the Welsh language strategy, which goes to the Welsh Language Commissioner. So this one goes to Welsh Government, but the Welsh language strategy goes to the Welsh Language Commissioner. So there's not even joined up around, from a national level. So, but we only that report goes to council. It doesn't come to a scrutiny to be scrutinised. Perhaps, Jane, it's something that we would need to consider as to where that would sit and where actions against the Welsh language strategy, if we are to meet the targets of 1 million speakers by 2050, where's the opportunity for members to actually scrutinise that aspect?
Okay. Yeah, Gwanad.
The report template as well. So we had the report rather late in July with a kind of turnaround very quickly. But if you look at the report template that's sent, it's very much focused on school-based elements. And
That's because it's the West template.
yeah, the West template. So hence the report that's linking in with it followed the kind of guidance that we were given by Welsh Government. So key annual data, number of primary schools received Charter Iaith, number of schools received Cymraeg Campus, number percentage of English Welsh schools that are part of it, how many English secondary schools operate Charter Iaith. So that was the guidance element that was there for the actual report that sits behind things as well. So that's, it's possibly something for Welsh Government to take on board in terms of particularly outcome 5 around those wider elements. But some of the statements are rather kind of high level rather than individual things that are going on. I've kind of tried to put them together so the report doesn't go over 20 pages as such as well, which is the danger of doing.
Something we may need to consider locally, Liz, I think, to actually support us, because we are, a small local authority, one team sort of looking at this. So how we can make the most of one template and adapt it to meet the needs of the Welsh Language Commissioner. So it's a dual purpose.
Okay. Okay, Jeff, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I've only got 3 very quick questions. Could we go to 5.1 in the main report, please? And it says Welsh Education Strategic Plan has made appropriate progress in achieving its objectives in the first year. Has that been determined, please?
We took milestones from within the WESP that were, again, sort of time-related elements. And what we have is a dashboard linked to that, a sort of RAG rating. And I can see Liz nodding on the left there because it's actually on our highlight report, so for subgroups to feed into as well. So we looked at that to see how many of those had sort of been met against target or were proceeding against those targets, etc. So I think the number at the time was something like 12 out of 20 were hit the actual target, although 5 or 6 of them were already progressing towards the target as well. So there were things that building blocks that needed to be put in place, which were happening, but hadn't actually achieved the outcome at that point in time. So that's where that judgment comes from.
Thank you. Perhaps might I suggest it might be useful just to put that into the report at some point. I appreciate you've got to keep brevity there. I get that. Could you just now go to point 5.6, please, Chair? And could someone just explain this to me? It says 42 places due to be assessed, or is that accessed? I've got it down as assessed, but it's accessed, is it? Fine. Okay, that's fine. That answers that. And the last point is the plan originally was for 5 years, and now it's been put to 10 years. I'm presuming that wasn't a local decision. And can anybody shed any light as to why that it might be, please?
5 years, if you're looking at strategic plans for opening schools and for developing that, you usually can't, you quite often don't manage that in a 5-year period to look at if you've got to change local development plans, if you've got to change what was band B, but is now sustainable communities for learning, that longer plan. It is that opportunity to be far more strategic. It was interesting because when we were told it was going to 10 years, we were then told this would be very high level, very strategic. So we all submitted our plans, and they were all sent back to us because there wasn't enough detail in it. But in a 10-year plan, it is very difficult to be strategic, to be detailed for the last 5 years. So if you look at the WESP, our WESP, you'll see there's a lot up to 2025, 2026, and far less detail. So what we did when we brought it to council was actually said the Welsh language strategy is 5 years, which does support a lot of the WESP. Then the next Welsh language strategy will support the latter end of the WESP. So we would be expecting after 5 years, so 2026, 27, to be re-looking at the WESP to put more detail in those latter years for the strategic element of the WESP. But it was a decision by Welsh Government to make it a 10-year plan.
Thank you, Chair. That's it.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, colleagues, I'm going to come to Hannah next, and then I think we've done a really good job in scrutinising this particular report, so we'll move on then to the RAS strategy after that. But Hannah, I'm going to come to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question from me. I'm keen to know, are teachers provided with time during the directed time calendar to develop their Welsh skills, or do they have to do it in their own voluntary time?
I'm not sure I got a full answer to that, Hannah, in that respect. But my understanding would be they would be given within directed time. Obviously, there's a choice element to extend beyond that as well.
It just seems that the buy-in with doing the intense courses is quite low. So I'm wondering, is there additional work that needs to be done in teachers' own times? And my concern is a workload issue with the new curriculum, with the ALN Act, and Welsh is a massive task to actually learn Welsh. So I just think that schools need to be providing time with inset and twilight to start mastering this skill.
The schools that I've alluded to today have put it in 1265.
Brilliant.
Or during the inset time as well. You know, some of the sort of more advanced qualification elements require more time, so it may be that those are sort of competing additionally to that.
Thank you.
We are looking as well, Hannah, because the Learn Welsh Glamorgan are 30 weeks, and it's a long time, it's a long commitment. So we're looking at what else could be offered that actually gives that sort of the confidence to staff to be able to use it, because a lot of it is confidence.
Yeah.
To actually to use the language, to see what other aspects we could actually develop. It's a difficult one, and I will say that it's not, we're not alone in actually struggling. That workforce element is
it is difficult, and it's difficult when you're teaching in front of the class to remember to embed in the spoken Welsh for children and making sure it's consistently done across the whole school. So I'd be interested to see what initiatives schools are using to tackle it and to bring best practice to the table so that it can be rolled out, and also to find out what pupil voice engagement is like with it as well, because some children absolutely love the language, but there is resistance from some learners as well. So it's that push and pull. So I'd be keen to see what is going on across the schools.
Most have utilised that kind of Siarter Iaith Cymraeg campus route in the first instance, because that looks at provision, and that gives opportunities for both children and adults to work on that. at that kind of entry level, I suppose, as well. And obviously, as they go up through bronze, silver, gold, that's extended out then into things like the community as well. So it touches on curriculum, but doesn't embed in curriculum, but it is a cross-curriculum mandatory element of the curriculum as well. So you're right in finding opportunities to be able to enhance language development.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for the information in relation to that report. I think, you know, as we progress, there's still a lot to look at, isn't there, within regards to the Welsh Medium Education Strategy. But yeah, thank you. It's really, really informative. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 4. That is the RAS strategy. Raising aspirations, raising standards, and we're going to have a update on the report, and then we can discuss really any information to identify any impact on the report and future priorities. Michelle, are you taking us through the report?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
The Raising Aspirations, Raising Standards strategy was approved by Council in November 2020 and implemented from 2021. An update on progress was provided to this committee in December 2021. A multi-agency education partnership panel was set up to oversee the progress of the strategy. The RAS strategy provides a clear and shared vision for education in Merthyr Tydfil. The vision and priorities remain appropriate with the impact that is available. Broadly positive. There is greater acceptance that the success of young people is everyone's business, and this was recognised in the local authority's inspection back in January 2022. Due to significant changes in policy, which can be found in Appendix 1, collaborative review processes have taken place over the past 6 months, engaging partners and schools to understand the current progress against the commitments and to consider any changes needed. A range of multi-agency groups have been established to focus on key aspects of the RAS. All these groups include head teacher representation, and many are multi-agency. A copy of the proposed changed RAS document is attached to Appendix 2 with changes in red, and members are asked if they agree with these changes. So just taking you to the recommendation at 2.1, that scrutiny members discuss the content of this report and appendices and consider whether any further information should be presented and noted.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So with regards to the recommendations, obviously, inevitably, we will do that. And we're not going to unpick every element within the RAS, okay? Because obviously this is an understanding of the review of it and where we are now. But I think maybe just touch upon 1 or 2 areas, colleagues, if that's okay. But just remembering what's been brought to us is an overview, really, of that strategy. Okay, so on that note, I shall open it out to colleagues. Do we have any questions on the RAS? Jamie, you were hot on the button then, so you were coming straight in there. Councillor Jamie Scriven.
That's great. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the first question is in regard to the Education Partnership Panel. Obviously overseeing the progress of the RAS strategy. Have there been any notable enhancements made by the panel in terms of the progress of the strategy? Anything we can sort of pick out and say there's been improvement directly from that?
What the EPP tends to do, and I look at the chair as well because she sits on our education partnership panel, is look at elements of it and actually challenge us on what we challenge the school, and challenge schools on the delivery against it. Because what we've had in the past is we've had schools that have come and talked about the curriculum for Wales. They've talked about the ALN. They've actually spoken about it, and then it's for the members of the group to challenge challenge officers. This is what we want to see next. This is how we want to do it. I don't know, Chair, if you wanted to come in and say.
Yeah, just to add to that, Jamie, I've been a member of the member of the membership panel, the Education Partnership Panel now, since its inception, and that was when I was cabinet member for education and leader as well. And so it's twofold, really. It certainly looks across the board with regards to all of our education and learning strategies within Merthyr Tydfil, and there are a number of different people within that meeting then as well, including the chief executive. You know, so it really does look at at the local authority. Corporately, it looks at the learning department, it looks at our schools, and heads of schools have come in and reported to that panel as well. So it is really robust. It uses the RAS strategy along what it does with its agenda to make sure that, you know, we are really ensuring that that strategy is lived and breathed as well throughout the local authority. I think all would agree. Apologies, that was my phone going off. I thought it may have been my 5-minute recess. Apologies. So yeah, Jamie, and I can share more on that with you as well. And I think in January, the director has also asked me to sit in and chair it as so as your scrutiny chair, I'll also be chairing that meeting at some point as well. She's very naughty doing that. She caught me on an off day. So I will do that. And again, I'll feed that back to this scrutiny, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's good to know. Obviously, I'm trying to get because I'm not familiar with it, get my head around the understanding of how that panel operates. So it's good to know then that it's being used as an internal scrutiny mechanism, but you're also looking at the guidance and accountability from the school perspective as well, then challenging them in how they're meeting the requirements of the RAS. That's good to know.
Yeah, Jamie, just to add to that as well, I think if you remember at the time, we also had an assurance board in place. So it was a case of us sort of, you know, with Sue, with the team sitting there and thinking about, you know, who could we get in as a really formidable chair? And we did that with Nick as well, but also, you know, so that we could make sure that we don't just publish a strategy, we do actually, as I said, live and breathe it. So yeah, you know, and I'm happy to send you previous information on the EPP and the setup of it as well.
Yeah, so just given that answer in mind, then I'm assuming that from yourself, Chair, and the officers, that we don't see any improvements needed for the EPP and how that operates and functions, or we're happy with how it's operating currently.
There's always room for improvement, Councillor Scrutiny, and I think, you know, we have the first chair that we actually had has stepped down. Because his role with the local authority has finished. So I think this is one of the reasons for looking at a chair. We were, you know, whilst Councillor Mitten is stepping in January, we are looking for an independent chair, because the feel from the chief executive is we should have an independent chair, because that really shows the challenge and actually the drive to actually do that. So whilst we are seeking an independent chair, Councillor Mitten is stepping in January.
Is there any way we can support with that, Sue?
If you can think of somebody that's got this independent, Merthyr-centric, and has got an education, you know, and understands education, but isn't sort of involved in any of our schools or any of the processes within the council, please let Ellis or myself know, and we can consider that person.
I'll give it some thought. Sorry, I did have two other questions. The next one is specifically looking at the outcomes that have been achieved through the Business Education Together partnership and the Secondary Governors Strategic Working Party. I'm just wondering, what outcomes have we had through those initiatives, and are they lining up directly with the RAS strategy goals?
BTP and other.
Okay, the Business Education Together partnership is still in its infancy in many ways. We're having the formal launch at the end of January. However, over the last sort of year, 18 months, some work has gone on to support schools. So we've had some businesses working with a couple of different clusters on curriculum related, because the careers work related education is part of the new curriculum from 3 years old to 16. So some of the links have been there. We've been working with employers and business to sign them up in the first place and pledge them as well. So what I mean by that is that we have a seal which actually the young people were involved in designing, and there's a nod at the back there, so that's a good thing, in terms of what sort of things employers could offer as well. So that might be something like mentoring, it might be reading buddies, it might be something linked into the curriculum as well. So we've been working on that. This year we managed to secure via some external grant funding a strategic partnership coordinator who's actually now driving that work which sits under me. But she works right across both employers, the schools, the college, and the partnership to kind of drive that area forward as well. So the work is developing and actually gathering pace. Going back to the Welsh language, there's actually a Welsh kind of careers fair for the Pen-y-Dre cluster, which is planned for February, because that was their request. That was the cluster request to develop that. So that's being hosted in the college as one of the partners as well. So it's sort of those type of events that are happening there. In terms of the secondary governor, when they did a piece of work, it was when I first joined, I think, around well-being.
Yeah.
And looked at well-being across the secondary clusters, what that looked like, and they made some inroads into putting things like my concerns into schools and trying to sort of put a more coherent frameworks in place, that they were all doing some similar things around well-being. So that was the impact around that as well.
And the strategic governance group also included one of the directors from the college on it as well. So you had representation from each of the secondary schools, somebody from the college and somebody from Greenfield as well, to ensure that we had that sort of equity across, as Andrea said, that cohesiveness across the piece.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, I'm going off on a tangent, but in terms of the information that was brought together then from the well-being work you said around the Secondary Governance Strategic Working Party, was any of that data shared over with the group that are working on Snakes and Ladders project to inform any of their work?
No, it was shared with the governors. So
Just
it was
the
actually
governors,
very
okay.
much that at that governor level. So it was shared in. It was, and I was looking around to see if I don't think there's anybody in this room that actually sits on one of the secondary governing bodies, so you wouldn't have received that. But it was shared. It was an agenda item on secondary governors as the work was being progressed.
Okay. Excuse me. Yeah, that's the last question I was going to ask, and I know you said it's in its infancy. So is it too early to say that in terms of the business education together partnership, like I'm saying, it's too early to say if we know there's any improvements around student career readiness and career pathway choices, or have we got information on that?
No, we haven't got that level yet. No.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question, really, because reading the report, it sounds great. We're saying we're making progress, but it was that explicit detail I was sort of missing, and I was wondering why that is, but that explains it. That's great. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, I'm going to come to Anna next, then Lawrence, I'll come back to you, and then Hannah.
Thank you. 5.1, specifically the last sentence, there is now greater acceptance that the success of young people is everyone's business. What evidence is there behind this statement?
This morning we were sitting in the college, doing some work for our vulnerable learners, actually looking at where we can support our children, particularly on tuition, or particularly those that are at risk of exclusion. So sitting around the table were officers from the employability, from the campus hub, from the college, from Tydfil training, and the 4 secondary schools as well. So it's that understanding that actually this doesn't just sit in the education directorate. This does sit across the board. Andrea spoke about the seal, and actually the local authority departments, neighbourhood services, Regen have signed up to that expectation that they will support children and they will support young people in sort of careers work, and actually that support. So we've got some quite significant examples. We mentioned the head teachers groups, or we mentioned the head teacher groups in this, which are multi-agency. So they won't just be schools. They won't just be schools and officers. You've got other directorate officers from other directorates sitting on that. Community focused schools, you've got BAMP sitting on it, you've got an external consultant, you've got Alan Owen sits on that one. If we look at the whole school approach that Andrea chairs, you've got people from social services, you've got people from health sitting on that. So it becomes that expectation that education doesn't just sit over there and is the annoying department that tries to take all your money, but it is that everybody's business. Because if we don't get it right for the children and young people, we haven't got a future in Merthyr. because the children and young people are the future of Merthyr Tydfil.
Thank you. But to my mind from an answer, when we say everyone, we're still really talking about it mostly within the context of the local authority, this department.
No, if I mentioned with the community focused schools, you've got external people sitting on that community focused schools agenda. You've got, if we take the WEF, for example, we're looking at, it's not just officers. In fact, there are probably more partners that sit around that table. The literacy work that we're actually doing to push literacy in our schools. We've got the National Literacy Trust that sits in it. We've got Stevens and George Charitable Trust that sits in it. So we're looking for partners that can actually support us to deliver the priorities of that actual group, the group that we're setting up. And the expectation is that the RAS is used to actually drive that. It's a partnership. It is not just one department.
Okay, thank you. 5.16 with regards specifically to a review of the school's budget forum. Could you clarify when this review was undertaken, please?
Last academic year, and it's fed into the work, as Lawrence may be able to explain a little bit more. It's fed into the terms of reference, and it's fed into the way that it's been worked. It started from this academic year.
Thank you. Could I ask then, what have been the benefits of these changes?
I think it's a more cohesive group. It is that aspect where it's a very challenging group. We've had a change of office. We've had a significant change in officers, or we will be having a change in officers moving forward. But it makes it it is more open. The minutes are available on Hub. They're published on once the minutes are signed off, they're published on the local authorities website as well. So it becomes a more, I would say, more open. It's always been challenging, but it is more open of what is actually discussed in that group.
Thank you. So would those minutes be available to me as a councillor?
Yeah, you should be able, and please, if you can't find them, come back to me, because you'll find that they're a term behind, because until the minutes are signed off in the next meeting, you won't see them.
Okay, I am terrible with Hub, so I will be coming back to you on that one, so I promise.
Training.
Okay. And then looking around a lot of the narrative between 5.3, 5.38, around attendance and exclusion. What are the current figures for exclusion within the local authority? And on persistence absence, can I clarify how these figures are represented? So when it says that the persistence absent rate in secondary schools is 24%,
that was based on the 80%, not the 90%.
So does that mean that 24% of pupils in secondary school have an attendance rate of 80% or lower? Yeah. Okay. And then on both these figures for attendance and exclusions, is data disaggregated to show figures for children in receipt of free school meals within that?
Yes.
Okay. So if you provide the figures for free school meals, for exclusions, could you provide those differences and also for attendance as well? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, Anna. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go over to Lawrence, and then I'll come back to Hannah. Lawrence.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just going back to what Anna was asking about the budget forum information. There is a link now on it's on the council it's on the council website, but it's under the residential section, which is a bit strange. It's not under the normal council meetings, but it is in the residential section, and the link is available. It was circulated to governors in the termly meetings this term, so it is available from there now, as Sue mentioned. Looking at the initial report there, I'm just a little intrigued by 529. Just for my information, really, it mentioned about the ELSA project supported 40 pupils. I'm just wondering, what is the difference between that project versus the ELSA that's provided within the schools themselves?
Sorry, Lawrence, what number were you looking at?
529.
I think you've stumped us, Lawrence. Can we please get back to you for that one?
That certainly is. I'm intrigued because, as you know, lots of schools will do their own ELSA, don't they? So
Yes.
yeah, so I was just wondering. Otherwise, then, if I jump onto the actual RAS statement and the projected aims and so on, looking at the top of, well, page 5 of the RAS, and I think it's page 47 of the report, it says about challenging question must be asked about the sustainable impact of the changes made during the time. And there's been an addition about the situation is more positive in 2023, but further work is needed. I'm just wondering, when you say challenging question must be asked about the sustainable impact of changes, what changes are we sort of talking about there?
Yeah.
It's referring back to the schools challenge Cymru work. Back, I don't know the dates of the
26. Yeah.
to that, because it didn't have, it was a lot of financial input, a lot of work went into that time, but it didn't necessarily sustain the outcomes. So it's referring back to that.
Okay, yeah, right. So on that basis, then, yeah, so this is the difficulty, as you said, if you have some sort of grant or initiative providing resources to do something, then how can we make sure that it's able to be carried forward when those funding or whatever is removed? Isn't it?
Yes. I think, yeah, and that's the issue when we're putting initiatives in now.
Yeah,
And certainly it's one of the initiatives that is something that we're talking, Andrew will be talking to Siobhan and I'm talking to the community focused schools managers, is what are they putting in? It needs to be sustainable. And if we, if that funding is withdrawn, how can this work, which we see an impact of, be sustained? So it's not just a one-off.
right. Okay.
And it is difficult. You saw in the West report, Lawrence, where it said about finance, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We get
Okay.
pockets of money. Yeah.
Exactly. That is the challenge, to say the least. A little bit further down, which is another addition on here. You got the since September, I think you mentioned 2022. I think that should be not 2002. Of the 4 schools inspected, 3 being placed in reported categories. How would you sort of reassure the public that those sort of has been addressed and, as you say, perhaps is rogue outcomes?
I think those 3 schools came to the last scrutiny,
Yeah,
and I know there's further work
I
going
know.
on. What we would say, and I think what we did say at the time, that 2 of them were not a surprise, and we were already working with them to for that to put that support in. One wasn't a surprise, but it was a disappointment, wasn't it? It was more than anything
Yeah.
else. So whilst we're obviously disappointed, because that's I had a target. I think one of my key performance indicators for 2022 was that 100% of the schools would have positive inspection outcomes. Well, by the end of September, I'd lost that. Because we were already 2 schools down, and then we had the 3rd one go in.
Yeah.
But we can reassure the public in that the post-inspection action plans that have been put in are robust, that we are continuing to challenge that school. One of them has certainly had warning notices put in, and we're looking at the process that we have put in to challenge those schools.
Yeah. I suppose what I'm asking, Sue, is to reassure people that going forward, if we're like, we would not foresee or expect another school to fall into that category in the near future. What, how are you monitoring and how you're ensuring that that isn't going to happen?
Yeah. We do it through the through the team around the school. meeting, which we have on a half-termly basis, where we discuss all the schools from all the service areas perspective and from the consortium, and
Yeah.
actually then put targets in sort of support in place. I'd love to be able to say that we won't, but as long, you know,
Yeah.
for me, it's
Is-
more about no surprises.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, as you say, as you say, there's no surprise because you expected it. But I suppose, to what degree are you comfortable? I know we work closely with Central South Consortium, etc., and the improvement partners and what have you, that they will flag up to you in
Yeah.
no uncertain terms that they've got concerns
Yes.
and that you can act upon them, isn't it?
Yes.
So I presume that perhaps those
That's-
conversations are more robust now.
Yes, and actually, if you look at our inspection report, one of the things in our inspection report was holding the CSC to account. And
Yeah,
Andrea talks in this about the CSC RAS plan. Part of Andrea's role is holding CSC officers to account for the work that they're actually delivering.
Okay. Then jumping down a bit further, let me get it. Commitments to action section of the objectives. And what has it got? I've got it right over here. It says, how can these commitments be met when funding is causing a reduction in staffing and resources? Because what it says here, it says develop the capacity amongst the workforce to deliver the objectives outlined in our national mission, high standards, aspirations, develop capacity among the workforce to deliver flexible approaches and manage situations as they arrive, and so on. So what concerns me is, as we rightly say, these are what our aspirations or at least objectives should be. But with the funding situation as it is currently, and the fact that we know we had to reduce staff last year because of the funding challenges that schools faced, and potentially we're going to be challenged again in the coming year, how can we really address or fulfill those commitments with that in abeyance?
I think this is something that you brought up, and I think there's a question that Councillor Williams-Price brought up in a previous scrutiny meeting about the impact of data and how we could actually show that the RAS had made a difference. And we did say at the time that it's probably too soon because the secondary schools have their curriculum in place and will keep the curriculum for the year 10 and year 11 to ensure that we have that delivery. What we were talking about with the secondary schools this morning is how we can work closer together and with the college to deliver opportunities for learning for the within the current within reducing budgets, because whilst at the moment you might have two out of the 4 schools delivering construction, they might not be able to do that moving forward. It's how we can maximize that, either delivering it through the college or just one school doing it. So I think there's a lot that we need to unpick. Secondary schools, all schools tend to like to be little islands and deliver their own curricula. So it's actually getting to, it's what I mentioned earlier about partnership, is how we can get schools to work closer together to actually have that curriculum. But it is, we know that the budgets are reducing. We want the best for our children and young people. We've got some quite high level commitments in here. And Councillor Williams-Price mentioned attendance. If the children aren't in school, they're not going to attain anyway. But it's how we can all work together to meet as many of these commitments as possible, but understanding that finance is tight. What I will say is that the directors of education in Wales have sent a letter to the Minister for Education and the Welsh language outlining our concerns about the budget and the impact that that is having on our schools and on the children and young people.
Yeah, I should say, Sue, that I think the RAS is an excellent document which brings together the breadth and influences which influence the education, and it brings it all into one place. And it does really highlight the complexity of all the different elements which affect the ability to deliver. And you're quite right. Well, the title says it talk about raising aspirations and raising standards. It's quite right for the actual authority to have aspirations as well, which is the bottom line. Even though we have got rationale why we are how can I put it, hurdles, obstacles to put us in achieving them. And I don't necessarily that. Because also then lastly, what I would say is, first of all, again, thanks for the report. And I found the other document that you provided about the goals and the, if you want to put it, plans towards the goals and the progress against them was quite very informative. So I want to thank you again for all the work there to show that. Yeah, so yeah, I could say, but no, I'll leave it at that. There's a couple of other things, but no, I want to thank you for everything. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lawrence. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to go to Hannah next.
Discuss 5.37 with persistent absenteeism, and there's a decrease. Now, you've mentioned that there's more systems and procedures in place to support the schools. I'm just wondering what that support, what does it look like? Could you give us some examples of what the schools are doing?
It's very bespoke to each school. For example, I can give you a couple of examples. For the Penedre cluster, there was a piece of work done with transition pupils that that started sort of in June half term last year, where the community focused schools team and some other partners were working with those with children that had been identified by the primary schools as and by us, but as persistently absent. Piece of work done with them. It was engaged, taking them up to Penedre, actually doing some work with them on the school site, but actually outside as well. That carried on during the summer holidays for a certain length of time, and then actually into October half term to ensure that those children and young people were attending school. We've now stepped back, and we're not actually going to measure their attendance until February half term, because what I said about sustainability earlier, they've got good attendance at the moment, but let's see now, after the when the dialogue has stopped with the parents and with the young people themselves, are they actually continuing to go to school? So that's a specific piece of work that's been done with in the Penedre. Within the Cavartha High School, they wanted to target year 11s, because quite often our year 11s, if they go off piece, they'll say, "Oh, don't worry about them. They're year 11s. They're nearly the end of the year." But we decided no. They decided no. We want them to have some attainment. So again, something similar. Working with the families, working with the college, working with other partners to say what accreditation, what qualifications, because they're not tuition children.
No.
They're not PRU. They haven't been excluded. They're just not. They're just not attending school. How can we get them to at least get some basic skills? And in old money, the level 1, we want them to have that basic qualifications. So there's a specific piece of work being done in Cavartha to actually challenge those year 11s. And we're looking at doing a year 8 or 9 in Avontav, because they've said that the year 8s and year 9s are their highest persistent attendance. So that would be something similar to what was done in Penedre, working with the families. What else can we do? And then putting that support in, then coming back a term later to actually look at that. We need to start targeting, and it was something that we were talking about in the college this morning. We've got persistent absentees in our primary schools as well, how we actually engage with those, but also the opportunity of different ways of delivering the curriculum to those children that are persistently absent. And that's sort of some conversations that we want to try and look at that. I won't say too much. We'll feed back on that later, but that was a conversation that was brought up this morning to see if we can re-engage them in education.
Thank you for that. What's the data looking like? What are the main sort of reasons why children are not attending? Because I know COVID has had a massive impact with children engaging with education, but is there like a general trend in Merthyr with our learners?
It's anxiety that tends to be given as the main reason.
So then,
and that's from primary right the way through to secondary.
So is there additional support in place for them with things like anxiety, with provision? Because I know budgets are tight at the moment, so it's schools thinking outside of the box, isn't it, to try and find new ways of catering for them learners. And just 2 other questions. One focusing on absenteeism as well, but it's for our CLAR learners as well, those that are in residential homes. what additional support is in place for them when they are refusing to actually go to school, because obviously it's a different issue altogether then, isn't there?
To be perfectly honest, I don't know, Hannah, but I'll ask Jess. I'll ask our CLAR coordinator, Jess, and I'll feed back to the committee.
Thank you.
That.
And then my last one is on pupil voice. It seems to be underutilised in the report. I'm just wondering, is this something that you're going to develop as the sort of the RAS carries on and with the new curriculum? Because pupil voice in the new curriculum is absolutely massive. It's a fundamental point to it.
It is one of the things that we're looking at. And before Andrea comes in, there's a specific piece of work that again the community focused schools are looking at. The Southern Cluster, as Lawrence will be aware, had already started pupil improvement groups.
Okay.
We're looking at this, and it is something that one of the community focused schools managers is taking up to actually have embedded across the whole of the whole of the county borough, with the intention that in the summer or the end of the spring term, they engage with ward councillors. They then engage with local council. They then engage with the Senedd, and we've already had a conversation with Dawn, and it won't be the normal, this is normal visit to the Senedd. They actually engage and ask questions. And we've spoken to Gerald Jones as well about doing the same thing. So they get that opportunity of looking at democracy and asking asking things about education from a local perspective, from a national perspective, and then from central government perspective. And then part of our role will be to take that forward. So what have they said to ward councillors? What have they said to to our council that they want to actually drive forward? And and that is from primary and secondary. Our youth forum is 11 plus.
Yeah.
We've got some very articulate primary age children that need to have their voice. We are very good at pupil voice within 11 plus, as we can see from Jacob and the people that we people that we have at Scrutiny and the engagement we have with that. We need to target and we need to support our primary children in actually having that voice as well, because that then will feed into Empty Boyf in the future and will feed into our youth cabinet and actually drive that forward, so engage in that.
And then you're hitting all your articles of children's rights as well then. Brilliant, thank you.
Andrea, did you want to?
Yeah, it's also in my business improvement plan as well, because it came out of our self-evaluation. So the work I alluded to earlier around the business partnership, so the strategic partnership coordinators going into schools to talk to the young people there. So that's one angle. The Crew Cymraegs is another angle, and I'll be doing work around perhaps some more able and talented, because part of my route is around the realizing potential at the top end as well. So that's in the plans for this year. Going back just to CLAR, just briefly, part of the work of the Business Education Partnership has actually been around the Seren Dyfodol project, which is a cross-directorate with the Regen team, which has targeted CLAR learners. So again, that will help to support some of the elements around attendance. And there's a new project about to be launched called Uwch Amdani as well. So again, targeted at CLAR learners for that. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to come to Natalie next, then Jamie, and then Jeff. Okay, so Natalie.
Thank you. On page 34, 5.2, it says about education services, a positive report from Estin, January 2022. Obviously, we have scrutiny. Recommendation 2 of the Estin report was to improve the quality of scrutiny of education services. So obviously, we're here for scrutiny. I've only been on scrutiny myself for a few months. So is there anything from your point of view as officers and as director, anything else that you're doing to improve the scrutiny outside of our committee?
I'm going to hand over to Jane, because we've actually got Lally coming. We've got our link inspector coming in in February, and I did actually ask Jane to provide me with a report. So I think, Jane, you're usually very quiet in these meetings. So no, I know.
I think we've done lots over the last 12 to 18 months. I mean, we've done lots of training with new members. We've got a chair and a vice who mentor our members. We've had opportunities to visit schools. We've had opportunities to set up task and finish groups. We've had workshops, and all of those things add to scrutiny, gives you more information, allows you to ask more questions, build up your knowledge, builds up your confidence. So there's lots of things that have happened. And I think from just being in scrutiny a short time myself, there has been improvement around sort of questions to officers. The reports that comes out, there's more data in the reports. They're more extensive reports that comes out to you. You know, the RAS report was like 5 documents that comes with that. So a lot has happened over the last 12 to 18 months, and there's been improvement across not just our learning scrutiny, but all our scrutinies, I think.
Lovely, thank you. I haven't got anything to compare it to because obviously I wasn't here one a few months ago. So thank you, I appreciate it. And the training.
I think you would see just from the questions that are coming from members that that has definitely improved.
I think definitely concur with that, Jen.
Yeah. And I'll say as well, the training was great. I thought it was really fantastic, and everything that was provided from a training point of view was great. So lovely, thank you. And then on to the RAS and for the goals. So page 70, it says about goal 2, agree and implement the school staff wellbeing charter. I know with the one that is currently published, I know you're going to be launching this. The one that is currently published, education support to governors and other stakeholders are involved. Which stakeholders are involved in the current charter that's due to be launched, or we're going to see launched this term or next?
So I went through the charter is very similar.
Yeah.
It's just less words. As such. So we took the old charter and have kind of broken that down into smaller bullet points. So the content is essentially the same. It just mirrors now also the national charter as well. So those on the whole school approach group have been involved in looking at that. And then the head teacher representative. So I work alongside the strategic group for that. So they've fed in from their clusters of head teachers around that as well. So it would be people like Public Health, Wales, the social services team, HR teams, the school teams.
It's also gone through our joint
union.
unions. It's gone through the unions, and they had some quite specific questions that led to part of the training that went on to Hub. That led to that.
Yeah.
That actually put it. That were put in.
Were education support involved in it as well this time? I know they were previously, weren't they?
No, because as Andrew said, it's got the same high level that education supports.
And at the time of the change, they were actually, their contract hadn't gone through.
Right, okay.
As well. So there was still a question mark as to whether they were continuing. Thankfully they are.
Perfect, thank you. And I know I've seen the work that is there on Hub. So when are we actually going to have a launch for it, and how is it going to be launched across the board?
We'll do it in January.
January, right. Okay.
I didn't think December was the best time.
Yeah.
With lots of things going on in schools. The strategic head teacher team have looked at that and have discussed ways to do that with them, because it was sort of who the target audience is. Well, it's a wide target audience. So we'll do some workshops for sort of teachers as well as head teachers around that as well through the whole school approach team.
Perfect. I know you said about the timing, and I agree with you there, because I know the information is there and I've seen a lot of it, but you're right, I put it on hold until January myself. So
I did consider it because it was done at the end of half term. I'd finished what I needed to do, although there's still things that can be added continuously actually, but wrong timing.
Yeah, I think that's key, isn't it? It's evolving. Yeah. Lovely.
Probably send people over the edge rather than support them.
Thank you.
Yes.
I put my car by mistake in the multi-story.
Oh, no problem at all.
Sorry about that.
No problem at all, Clive. Make sure you're not locked in for the evening.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, before I forget, just on a point that Hannah made, I think we've got the 4th of March scrutiny, so the CLAR bit for the attendance we can bring up then, you know, it'd be useful to discuss then. Sorry, I just reminded myself about that. Okay, thanks, Nat, for that. Colleagues, apologies about the temperature in the chamber if anybody else is feeling it, unless it's just us up here, but it's gone incredibly cold. I think somebody's trying to keep us awake, so I do apologise, but I am a little chilly up here, but hopefully you can bear with us. Jamie, I'll come to you and then we'll go back to Jeff, who may be shivering as he asks his questions, but I think he'll be okay. So I'll go to Jamie and then come back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, Chair. I've lost my notes now. Where they gone? Sorry. Went to speak and it's all disappeared.
It's okay.
Sorry. Yeah, anyway, just following on from Hannah's commentary on the pupil voice stuff, Sue. So in terms of the mechanisms within RAS then for pupil voice, I wonder if you've got any appetite to bring back the school question time event that we used to hold with the senior council members and officers. If my memory serves me well, I'm sure Councillor Mitton's been on the receiving end of one of those events, and she might be able to give a bit of input how those go.
If you actually look back when we did launch the RAS, I was subject to one of those question time events as well. And I say subject to, I think Councillor Mitten actually had to wasn't there for that one, for various reasons. So what shall I say? Yes, we probably would, Jamie. It is, I think if you actually look at the quality of questions that we actually have from the children and young people, they are very challenging, but they're also what this is all about. So I'm certainly thinking, perhaps you as part of that, and perhaps I'll talk to Leanne about perhaps the starting point for those pupil improvement groups should possibly be the officers before we actually go into the councillors as well. So yeah, thank you.
I think that'd be great.
I think.
Yeah, they're normally quite broad, see, but I think if we were to specify this around education, around RAS, that could be a really interesting event in terms of pupil voice, and especially reviewing our own performance as well, and especially from our perspective, but what are young people's perspectives and how we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jamie.
Sorry, and the other question I had, and this is my last question, I promise. Because within the strategy we say that no, we're very clear in that it's everyone's responsibility for young people to succeed, and that's a statement I fully endorse and stand behind. It is everyone's responsibility in how young people succeed, and as you said, so we've got to get this right for young people. It's a vital part of that holistic development for them to be the future citizens for Merthyr Tydfil or any other places that they move on to, and if we get it wrong, we've seriously failed. So taking that on board, just in terms of the multi-dimensional learning aspect of the strategy, how are we currently working with external agencies to achieve not just the academic subjects, but like the personal, social, emotional areas? Are we mapping what external resources there are and services to help with those areas of the curriculum, or are schools doing it themselves? Like, how are we currently looking in terms of that?
As part of the remit of the whole school approach group, Councillor Scriven. So we're looking at what each sort of services offer, and that changes by the meeting, as well as more things sort of come on board as such. The schools will look at that themselves as well as part of what they will do for the curriculum. But there is currently a schools wellbeing directory, but that will need to be updated in line with some of the new things that have sort of come on board. And like I said, it is by meeting. So when I think I've cracked it, go to the next meeting and someone says, oh, we've done this now, or we've added this in. And because you're kind of utilising a wide range of services, both voluntary, third sector, as well as statutory services, that is a continual challenge, I suppose, to really understand what is out there. But there is a lot out there to be able to support schools within what they need to do as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Andrea, is there any scope in utilising Dewis Cymru for something like this, in terms of the school's access and that information? As that, I haven't used Dewis in a long time, mind. I'm just wondering, is there any feasibility or way of using that site, as it's already a host to services, for it to be a separate section for education, then where schools can reach out and know where these services are?
That it does come up, Dewis, in the conversations, so it is already being accessed.
Right.
How quickly is updated, I think, is perhaps more of a challenge.
Yeah.
As well, and obviously that's not necessarily within our control, but it is an avenue that we can take schools down.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
they can see what's available.
No problem. Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting to hear what comes back from the whole school approach group, and in terms of how you progress with that, I'd be really interested in it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, I was subject to an all-age question time event in the Red House, actually. But I think quite rightly, people should and public should be able to hold us to account, albeit in a managed environment and a managed process. But I'm more than happy to take part in anything like that. Okay, thanks, Jamie. I'm going to go to Jeff.
Thanks, Chair. I'll be quite brief. We've already touched on the terrible attendance figures. And I know that everybody's really worried about them. If you go to Goal 1, Performance Management and System Governance, Pandemic Recovery, at the bottom of the page, it says, key improvements made in the last 12 months include the introduction of a timeline to support attendance prosecutions. Could you just outline what that is and how you believe that will assist in reducing this terrible figure of 24% for secondary?
Sorry, Jeff, what page are you on?
Sorry, that is RAS review and output. That's Goal 1, Performance Management.
Thank you.
69?
Yeah.
Somebody saying? So if you go to the bottom of the page, the left-hand side says improve the management and use of data. And then halfway down there, key improvements made over the last 12 months include the introduction of a timeline to support attendance prosecutions. My question's still the same.
It refers to the sort of timeline for governors to carry out that process.
Yeah.
Taking down the, my brain's gone, what's the root of?
FPNs.
That's the one. Through the sort of FPN processes, so the kind of end result elements, because you have to go through that kind of graduated approaches with it.
What we've got is we've got schools, as you will be aware, Jeff, from when you were governor, that this is a governing body decision. Our head teachers have asked very categorically that they want a local authority approach to this. Now, from a Welsh Government perspective, we cannot put a local authority approach in because it has to sit under local management of schools. It sits with the governance. We do have within one cluster, they put together a cluster approach. When it was then taken to the governor improvement groups, one governing body said, we don't want to agree with it. So we are really struggling. We want, and our head teachers are asking for a consistent approach to the FPNs, because we have, we've got, if the children are sitting in different schools, because they may be primary school, secondary school, LRBs, so you're going to have a family who are going to be sitting in different schools. They all go on holiday and the outcome might be different depending on which school. So we're looking for some consistency. So the intention is to take what that cluster did, to share it with the other clusters, which it has been shared, but then they have to take it to their governing bodies for all of them to actually agree this is the route that we've gone down. So as Andrea said, we've got the timeline, but each governing body has to agree to follow that timeline. Otherwise, we could still have differences across the board.
So with that in mind, and I accept what you say, how is that affecting that 24%? And I know you don't have figures on it, I get that, but you're the Director of Education, you probably know how that's affecting it. So could you share that with us?
I'm not sure I'm not sure how I would share it with you. I can share information on FPNs, on prosecutions. I can certainly, we've got an attendance report coming, haven't we, in March. If I ask if it's okay with you and okay with the chair, as part of that report, we will put together an appendix, or we put together information on FPNs across the piece, and we can have that, and we can pick up that discussion in more detail in that report.
That's excellent, because I was going to ask the chair whether she would do that. So that's great. So let me change the subject somewhat. You'll be aware that I'm keen on the more able and talented because I feel they're underrepresented, but that's a different argument. But so if we go to the appendix key dates, and I'm sorry, I don't know what page that's on, but it's the performance management and assistance governance. Can you see that, Andrea?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Page 75. Thank you. So it says during 23-24, yeah, to develop Merthyr Tydfil Academy to support realising potential.
Yeah.
Could you explain that to me, please?
I can indeed. So that's linked to the what's currently called the SERIN project within Welsh Government. A lot of the work around SERIN in Merthyr has been targeted post-16, not pre-16. So we're trying to bring that down a level. Now, SERIN covers from year 8 onwards, but my view is that we need to extend that even further down into the primary school. So we've started in that kind of range of year 7 to 11, first of all. So we've met with the coordinators within the secondary schools to look at what's currently going on pre-16. So we kind of know post-16 because it's coordinated across the region, pre-16. So we've had the first meeting of that. And we're waiting for information to come back from the school to let us know what that looks like. I've got a meeting on Monday, actually, next Monday, to look at what those returns are and how we can put that into a sort of a Merthyr offer so that there's some equity around what we can offer across the 4 schools. So again, that was part of this morning's meeting around how we can pool resources, how we can put on things like masterclasses that the college can offer, how they can perhaps then do additional qualifications linked to that as well. So we've started in the secondary sector, but we will look to the primary sector. So far in that area, the college have the NACE Award, so they've linked in with Troyderoo and Anis Owen, who also have the NACE higher level awards, to see what they're doing, to see if there's any connectivity there. So again, to look to be able to roll those things out as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That supports the academic side, and I get that, and it sounds excellent. What are you doing to support the non-academic side?
It'll be both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
It'll be looking at what can offer around different areas, really, whether that's kind of, you know, sports related or music related, etc. as well. So those things will link in.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Chair, just last one from me, if that's okay. On the same document, you suggest during autumn 23, there was a review of catchment areas for schools. Yeah. Now, bearing in mind that we know that schools are struggling, or some schools are struggling for pupils, and that looks like it's going to go forward for a little while. What was the result of those catchment areas? Did anything change? Can you just give us some information about that, please?
It's not the end of the autumn term yet, Chair. It's
Autumn
autumn 23, which is where we are now.
I apologise.
No, we are.
Down here, Lisa.
Yeah. But it will feed into further work that we're doing. It will feed into planning of schools, places.
Yeah.
And what I would suggest, possibly, Chair, is it's something that you may want to scrutinise in the next municipal year to actually see how that piece of work has, how we take that forward, because it may link in with other pieces. It is linking in with other pieces of work that we're doing, but we're pulling it together at the moment, but then there will be further work to do. But it would certainly be worth scrutinising later.
Okay. Fine, thank you for that. And I apologise for the fact, Chair, I've tried to get this committee to work in advance for a change, but you know, thank you very much.
I love it. I welcome it, Jeff. No problem at all. I'm going to come to Anna next and last, okay, because it's getting quite uncomfortable in here. I'm sure others will agree. But I think, again, we've given this a really good hour of scrutiny as well. Okay, so Anna, over to you.
Thanks. Mine is a comment rather than a question, Lisa. Is now the appropriate time?
Absolutely, fire away.
Thank you. Firstly, I'm honestly never going to stop being shocked at attendance figures for secondary school. So I'm glad this remains a focus for officers and for this committee as it forms part of the forward work plan. And please can I just reiterate my request that as part of this we ensure figures are broken down so that information is available about differences between children who are in receipt of free school meals and those who are not eligible. And then more broadly, as a committee, we've received in the past few months 3 items which are very much connected. Those are the reports on school balances, the report on SEN inspections, and this report today. And on receipt of the report regarding school balances, as a committee, we were told by officers it was too early to assess the impact of budget cuts made to schools, and this has been broadly reiterated today. In the second report, we heard from head teachers and governors in schools that received SEN inspections and then required follow-up actions. All agreed that making required improvements would be more difficult if further budget cuts were made. They all spoke of needing to lose staff, mostly LSAs, who have such an important role in supporting children to succeed, particularly those with ALN. And the report today shows the scale of the challenge in ensuring children in Merthyr Tydfil have the education they deserve. And as the council moves towards budget setting period, this will be in the forefront of my mind, and I hope all councillors will view education as an area that needs to be prioritised. And I would also encourage cooperative members here to engage as much as possible with the budget setting process and scrutiny sessions related to that process to ensure that education is kept high up the agenda.
Yeah, thank you for that. Can I just remind you exactly what the comment was on the 7th of November, because I actually noted it, is that undoubtedly budgets will impact schools and clearly will be challenging, but as one of our heads actually said, but they have to take the responsibility, and in any case they will ensure that standards do not drop and will not affect teaching. So I just wanted to reiterate that as well, because that was what the head actually said on the 7th of November. However, Anna, thank you for that, and inevitably we will take that forward as well. Okay, thank you. Sue and Andrea, thank you ever so much. I think looking at those recommendations, I would say that we have definitely met the recommendation, scrutinising the report and actions, taking that forward. So thank you ever so much for today. You can leave this really rather chilly chamber now and get yourselves warmed back up. As colleagues do, we move on to agenda item number 5, and that is the forward work programme. And in the forward work programme, obviously we've got, as we always do, Jane has kindly added within that last column impact, outcome and actions from a report item. So we have that final column which actually just gives us a little bit of input as to what we actually discussed during these scrutiny meetings. And just forthcoming is the 22nd of January, the whole school approach. That will be a report to consider the whole school approach and progress on that and on standards as well. And also the Central South Consortia annual report to scrutiny as well. Now, you know, we had it a little bit later in the year last year, didn't we? But we were mindful of that and asked colleagues to bring that to us. So that's on the 22nd of January. Obviously, providing the critical friend challenge in relation to that as it sets out in there, and just looking at the contribution of the CSE work in partnership to raise standards in our schools. Okay, so that's our next meeting. Today we picked up that on the forward plan, inevitably at some point, and this is likely to be the forward plan from May onwards, just regarding those catchment areas, and also on the 4th of March, bear with me, I want to make sure I got my right date. Yes, within the attendance report, some of those key aspects that we talked about today within the RAS element will be picked up more specifically within that attendance report as well, and crucially around CLAR as well. Okay. Any questions on the forward work plan, Jeff?
I'm sure that we're all very, very concerned about that the attendance figures. It's probably the biggest thing that's hitting us at the moment. How can Sue possibly attain anything she's after attaining if she's got 25% of her children away? You just can't. And I appreciate on the 4th of March there's the attendance report and it's coming through. But Chair, would it be feasible that we actually have a real big session on this, either as a workshop or however you decide, to try and really break this, to try and I appreciate what Sue says. It's a Welsh Government saying it's a school approach, but schools are obviously crying out for leadership here, you know, and if Sue can't do it, and if we can't do it, then there's something sadly lacking. So I don't know how you're the expert in how we can take it forward, but please, can we get to the bottom of this and try and kick it into touch as hard as ever we can? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Jeff. Lawrence, do you want to come in before I answer that, or did you want to add to what Jeff has said?
No, it's a different topic.
Okay.
Yeah, all I was going to ask Chair to consider was, I see we got the ALN on the 4th of March, and I was just wondering whether you could consider whether we could have governors visit schools prior to that meeting in order to fact find how the ALN Act has been actually provided within schools.
Okay, Jamie, I'm going to come to you and then Natalie.
Yeah, just adding to Jeff's point, Chair, in terms of doing that piece of work, which is so vitally important, but I also think that it's got to be done in conjunction with young people as well. And I know that we normally do the events like the school council network meeting every year, but it needs to be something in the style of that possibly, but we need to ensure that we're reaching those children and young people that make up that figure, and having that clear understanding of what barriers they are facing or why those figures are the way that they are. And that's no disillusion to myself as a as a youth worker, that school is one of the primary reasons behind mental health figures in young people. So it doesn't shock me that they are the way that they are. But I know that the committee and myself want a deeper dive into understanding those barriers, so that we can look at implementing some interventions and seeing if we can support to bring attendance back up. Because as Jeff has pointed out, how can we achieve when we've got 25% that are not in attendance? And that's quite concerning.
Okay, thank you, Natalie.
Got the dates for the scrutiny activities. Because obviously we've got the let me see 1 second. The whole school approach on the 22nd of January. But then we've got a workshop planned for that. So would that be around the time of the committee meeting, or we're missing some dates, aren't we? We need to agree some dates on scrutiny activities.
Yeah.
Would that
Yeah.
follow on from 22nd of January, or something that would generally be before?
Well, to be honest with you, it should be before, because it gives you the insight into the scrutiny meeting. Do you know what I mean? So we'll double check.
I think the other thing as well, Andrew and Sue were saying about the launch of all of the wellbeing. It all seems to be like quite a lot in a short space of time. I wonder whether maybe the order of things is a bit higgledy-piggledy kind of thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes there are timelines and deadlines to be met. Sometimes they're out of their control as well. So it is that push then of bringing it through. But we'll double check on that. We'll double check.
And then the math one as well. And obviously ASOS has ended now, so we're sort of looking to plan that. It's going to be quite interesting, the math as well.
Yeah. Okay, we'll check on that workshop. Okay, let me come back to Lawrence's point first of all. Let me give that some thought, Lawrence, and just see what we can possibly schedule in. And not forgetting we've got half term, middle of February as well. We've obviously got the Christmas term now, Christmas leave as well. And then we've got half term, middle of Feb. So leave that with us. We'll get back to you as soon as possible on that. With regards to attendance, I'm sure that in relation to interventions that Jamie has mentioned, I know that, just from a governor perspective, there's a number of different interventions that some of the schools that I'm a governor at that they've implemented and are inevitably trying to improve upon. Funny enough, I have an attendance committee meeting on Monday morning at Cyfarthfa Primary School, and that's something, being a member of that particular attendance committee, we really, hit home on. So, I know that each school has their own interventions. I think that the tsunami that we see post-pandemic, in that time that our young people missed within school, and then what the parents or carers also saw and missed as well, has been so hard to pull back now, to get back into line, to get, we're seeing, I know, young people missing out on school who hadn't necessarily done before. You know, there are some themes and trends with some of our young people and some of our families, and that's where we get the added support from our social services colleagues as well. But it is a big topic to deal with. So my next agenda item talks about my scrutiny referrals and my quarterly technical meeting that I've got next week, funny enough. So I shall bring that up. So on behalf of the scrutiny and just the points that have been made by colleagues. Liz, apologies, I didn't see your name come up there and I missed your mic in green. Let me just finish what I'm going to say and then I'll bring you in. So in relation to that, I'll bring it up in my quarterly technical meeting next week, how best we can not address it, because it's not for us to address specifically, it's for us to scrutinise, but how best we could manage such a big subject, such a big topic, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Liz, my apologies.
Just wondering, when are we going to be hearing about this feasibility study for secondary education, and whether that's something that should be on the work plan? Maybe not, but just want to draw attention to that because we're not getting any answers.
I'm looking at my notes because I wrote it down somewhere, but I can't see my scribbles in between having texts about the issue at home in between. Yeah, I think it was, Jan. Bear with me. I'm just looking at my scribbles on there. Okay, yeah. I think we're looking at January, but again, I'll follow that up when I meet with Sue next week. So I'm meeting her on the 18th, I want to say off the top of my head. I'm meeting on the 18th and I'll add that to the agenda. And just on that point with regards to scrutiny referrals and further actions as well, Lawrence and I were discussing too, one is just in relation to safeguarding and one is in relation to the Ed Psych service as well. I did mention it to some of you in our pre-meet last week. You know, whether that comes through in workshop, information report, or a presentation from officers, etc. That's what I'll discuss with Sue next week. How best can we get that information? Does it need this? Does it just need a touch point on something, you know, around a particular subject area? So again, I'll follow that through and discuss that with you via email and pre-meet and our next scrutiny as well. Okay. Item number 7, report recommendations, and this is coming back to my scribbles, which I've now found as well. So just in relation to WESP, so it is finding out that data and getting to the bottom of that. And I know Sue said she would come back to us with that. I think it's also the follow-up regarding what the college is actually offering. I think they, without being disingenuous to the college, I think there may be a label of we're offering Welsh medium education, but is it true that it's a full offer, is what I'll word it as. So I think we just need to follow up on that. And Sue, I think, was interested in that point as well, Liz, that came from you, and we'll chase that up as well. And then, you know, that workshop invite as well, I think, will be useful to us, where we talk about that data and specifically around those areas as well, with all councillors, but that Sue offered that opportunity for all scrutiny members to attend as well. So, you know, we'll be able to do that moving forward. And then on the RAS strategy, a lot to discuss, especially as we've just said around that attendance element as well, picking up on those changes and those challenges going forward, because often, you know, things come our way, and then picking up the point that Anna made as well, and about impacts on budgets, etc. as well, and just making sure that that is discussed and addressed as well at future meetings. And then, you know, what other partners do came up in WESP, and what other partners do came up in RAS as well, didn't it? You know, so you have got other meetings and other partnerships happening, and really how did they clearly feed in to both of these elements? I know community partnership work was picked up for WESP, and then like the EPP was picked up for the RAS as well. So just making sure we have that whole rounded view on things for scrutiny. Okay. Before I go on to item number 8, any other comments or questions on those agenda items? Liz?
3 things that are, just want to make it clear to everybody, because there are 3 things that people who are involved with the WESP, the partnership, you know, that are really concerned about that is affecting the growth of Welsh education in Merthyr. And those three things are, first of all, we don't know where and when the Welsh language, the primary school will be, you know, we don't know where it is and when it will be operational. The other one is the secondary provision and whether we're going to have a Welsh school in Merthyr, a secondary school within the next 10 years. And the other one is the ALN provision not being available yet.
The LRBs.
The LRB, yeah. Those are the three things that are really affecting Welsh education now.
Thank you, Liz. I think everybody shares those sentiments with you as well. Okay, agenda item number 8, feedback on any scrutiny activities. Obviously, the LRB capacity workshop was held on the 21st of November. Really informative, but also helps us to become a little bit more knowledgeable and understanding of the challenges and the way forward then on that. And inevitably, we will pick that up in a future workshop or a future scrutiny meeting as well. Item number 9, any other business deemed urgent by myself. I haven't got any other business. Luckily, we didn't have to have a 5-minute recess. However, I do apologise for the temperature dropping in here. It is really chilly for everybody and not so comfortable as this. So apologies for that. Thank you all again for your attendance today. But, you know, mostly thank you all for just being so blinking good at the questioning that we do, you know, and the comments that we make with our officers as well. You know, it really is being that critical friend, and I really do appreciate it as your chair as well. Really proud of you all. So thank you ever so much. Now, I don't think I'm going to see, I may see 1 or 2 of you before Christmas. I'm not sure if I'll see all of you. However, Nadolig Llawen from me as a chair. Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm singing like Slade. Merry Christmas, everybody. Sorry, I thought, you know, the bells were going to ring out then. Yeah. Obviously, I'm getting so cold now. I'm like a little snowman, but oh, the frivolity have started. Christmas cheer. Have a lovely Christmas and a happy New Year. Those that I'll see shortly, I'll probably say it again to you. If not, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.
Yeah.
Diolch. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. And I loved seeing the cat, Jamie, as well. I loved seeing the cat.
Oh, I had to keep hold because we might have lost the Christmas tree otherwise.
Great. Thanks all. Take care.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.